Hey, what's up, guys? This is Joey Langenbrunner with the Joey Langenbrunner podcast. We talk about freedom and sovereignty and whatever else you want. Anyways, I got a special guest today. Some of you guys may have heard of him. Some of you guys probably don't know who he is, but he may or may not have cool stuff to say. But I think he has cool stuff to say. So this is Ron from Nearshore Living. What's up, bro?
Hey, how you guys doing today? Good. And yourself? Thanks a lot for having me on your channel today.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think this is like episode 7, so I'm a complete noob
Nice.
about this, but it's just kind of fun talking to people about what freedom and what sovereignty means to them because
Cool.
it literally means whatever to certain people. So, anyways, I know what you guys do on your channel. You guys talk about like living in LATAM or living around the world and stuff like that. So, kind of just wanted to hear your thoughts because I know a lot of people on Twitter these days are like, you got to move down to Argentina, I got to Colombia, got to come down to Mexico. I'm actually in Mexico right now. Been here for like a
Cool.
week. I'm getting like third world fatigue. I'm ready to go back, to the US. But like there's cool stuff about it. Like tacos are great. But yeah, I just want to kind of hear your thoughts about, you like this whole space right now.
Sure, sure. I've been living outside of Canada now for 10 years. And
Okay.
obviously I spent time in Latin America, mostly in Asia. And
Cool.
yeah, I've seen the guys on Twitter for sure. And my opinion is, you should do whatever you feel like doing, whatever makes you happy.
Right, of course.
But I think it's important also to like call things for what they are, especially nowadays. You have a lot of people complaining about woke people, let's say. And the fundamental issue that a lot of people have with woke people is that they refuse to call things for like what they are, basically.
Right.
And I kind of have the same argument. Like if something is blue, I just like to call it blue. If something is a square, I call it a square. Like I really hate redefining words kind of thing. And
Right.
maybe an unpopular opinion nowadays because it's so political, but like, even like 10, 15 years ago, I'm like pretty like open-minded. Like if someone wants to
And you
like,
should be. You really
yeah,
should be.
exactly. Yeah, like it's none of my business what people want to do with their lives. And no one on the internet, especially influencers, don't know what's best for you. Only you know what's best for you. A guy on the screen has no concept or does not care about you at all. So you should do what makes you happy. That being said, like a lot of the guys in Latin America, a lot of the guys on Twitter that talk about Latin America, a lot of them are saying things that are like factually wrong, let's say. Like they'll say things like there's more political freedom in Latin America than the US. They'll say things like Latin America is like on its way up economically versus the US is on its way down. They'll say things like there's more freedom of speech in Latin America than the US. And you are allowed to like Latin America. You're allowed to like living in Colombia. You're allowed to like living in Argentina. But certain things are not factually correct. And some things, you know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean like I grew up most of my life in the US. And so especially in my 20s, I'm in my early 30s now. I
cool,
swear for a
same.
whole decade, I would just complain about the US. I would. And then in my
Yeah,
late 20s, I went to Europe and I'm like, oh wow, this is amazing. This is the best place in the world. And in some aspects it is. And then
yeah,
ironically, I moved back to the US. And when I first moved back to the US, Ron, I didn't realize why I wanted to move back because I was like, why? Because like I was living in Portugal for about 2 years. It was kind of like a hot,
mhm,
like digital nomad spot, crypto tech,
yeah,
whatever, and I was in that crowd for a while. And then I went back to Florida. And for the first year that I was back, I've been back in Florida for about 2 years. And just like the first year, I didn't really know why I moved back. And then
yeah,
eventually after a year, I realized I'm like, okay, everyone around me wants to do business. Everyone around
yeah,
me is like, wants to be productive, efficient, have new ideas, build a new app, start a new business, whatever. But in Portugal, it's just like, let's just go have coffee for like, like 5 hours, which is cool. Like, don't get me wrong. I love
yeah,
that. And I still do that
yeah,
in some respects, but it depends on like where you are in your life,
yeah,
right?
yeah. No, 100%. And I think mostly it's you said you're in your early 30s, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Like I know maybe I look quite young, but I'm not as young as I used to be. And I remember it was maybe like 15 years ago, like 2007, 2006,
Yeah.
like post 9/11. Like there were a few years where everyone was very like pro-America.
Yeah.
And then 2006, 2007, like it just became so cool to like hate on America. Um, and I remember that TV show, the newsroom or something. It's that clip that everyone fucking played like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
like like, it just became cool to hate on America. But I like my opinion on America is the same opinion that I have on countries like Russia or China, which I do spend a lot of time in.
Yeah.
And it's just a country, and they're very big, and there's good stuff about it, there's bad stuff about it. And at the end of the day, I think if you want to live like a productive life, like you want to start businesses and stuff, you only have like two, three countries to pick from. Which is like America, if you're interested in the Western stuff, China, if you're interested in like the businesses that they do, you're interested in Asia. Like if you travel around Asia today, like Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia, it's becoming more and more Chinese. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just like how Mexico is very American.
Right.
Um, so it's like there's just like hubs of money, and they're not perfect. Like I don't know why that's such a controversial opinion to believe a place isn't perfect. Like I don't think I'm crazy for saying that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, it depends on where you are in your life because like if I had $30 million, right, and I'm retired, I don't care, maybe I
Yeah,
have a few side projects, I'll be in Europe. Like personally,
sure.
I'll be here.
Yeah,
I'll be having that 5 hour coffee, but I don't have
yeah,
$30 million to my name. I don't have anything near that. Sorry
yeah,
guys. So I'm in the US. I'm working. I'm hustling. I'm trying to get some business done. And also
yeah,
like it's my home country. It's where my family is. It's comfortable to
sure.
me, you know.
Yeah,
And even when it comes to like the tax system, like Americans are taxed everywhere, So like if you're
sure.
being taxed, you might as well be in the US taking advantage of being American.
Sure.
It's like
Yeah,
there's ways to reduce your taxes, and so like I'm
yeah,
dealing with like I'm dealing with like a devil I know, and it's like
yeah,
it's not too hard to just pay very little in taxes in the US if you know what you're doing. I mean, that's one other conversation. But if you're not American, you just go to like a zero tax like jurisdiction
yeah,
and stuff like that, like like Dubai or Abu Dhabi that has some of the most
sure.
like millionaires moving there. And I do see that place as like a good place to do business as well.
Yeah,
But I think I think you have something that I don't think a lot of people in the West will talk about is just kind of like and I don't want to say like the rise of China or anything like that because I don't know really what that means. It's kind of like subjective. But you're saying like Southeast Asia, like there's more Chinese influence. Like what kind of influence that is? I don't have a lot of experience inside,
mm.
like in that region of the world. So like I'm just curious from like a Westerner, like why would I move to Southeast Asia or like why would I move to China or Japan or like any of those areas? Like what are some advantages there?
Again, if you like it, like, like that's always the answer. Like I personally really like China.
Okay.
And if you only consume Western, like, yeah, the China topic is quite politicized nowadays. And I'm always afraid to say anything positive or negative because it's like people will just hate me for it. Um, but I genuinely like China. I think they're doing cool stuff. But for example, if you travel around Southeast Asia nowadays, like first time I came to Asia was like 14 years ago, and it
Oh
used to be
wow.
a lot more like English speaking. Like if you came to Thailand 14 years ago, or you came to Vietnam or Cambodia, it was mostly like everything was geared towards like Western tourists.
Okay.
If you come nowadays to like South Korea, Cambodia, for example, like you'll see a lot more Chinese signs, a lot more locals speak Chinese. And you can look at metrics of the economy, blah blah blah, trade, but like fundamentally, there is a lot of people now like wanting Chinese tourism, Chinese money to some extent.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just way like I'm not sure how we came to this topic, but the point is like if you want money, just go to places that have money. I think in my opinion, America really is number one for money at the moment.
Right.
And I think it'll continue to be number one for like decades to come. Uh, I think this is something that I joke about with our common friend, which is like, for example, to go back to the guys on Twitter, is they always talk about things like they happen tomorrow. Like it'll be like this guy got elected as president, therefore tomorrow everything will radically change. And it's like, no, like things don't radically change in like big places. Like I'll give you an example. Like a lot of people for a long time, and just because I make this sort of content, I'm more exposed to it. For the
Yeah.
past like 5 years, everyone that would talk to me would be like, America sucks. America's going downhill. America's just terrible. And then Trump got elected, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, America's back to normal. And I'm like, really? In like a day? Is that really what happened? You know what I mean? Like, it's like people are kind of stupid with like social media nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell myself like if you have a new president who comes in, if you're gonna feel any changes, at the earliest it might be like 2 to 3 years.
Sure. Yeah.
Like maybe there's like a change in like the tax code that now I'm actually paying more taxes or I'm paying less taxes. Okay, like that's an effect, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
But there's any ways to like mitigate stuff like that. And I mean like Trump was talking about getting rid of like income tax or something like that, which would be like
Mm,
incredible. And the
yeah.
US would skyrocket like crazy. But yeah, I noticed a lot of my friends who used to hate the US are now like super pro America out of
Yeah.
nowhere. And and I'm just like my life's not going to change.
Yeah. And the country hasn't fundamentally changed at all either. Like like Trump is one guy, and I hope he does really well, but it's like he doesn't have the power to change a whole system
He's
overnight. Like,
trying.
yeah, and I hope he does, but it's like my point is like the perception of people is too easily influenced, and I feel like that prevents them from doing things that are better for their lives. If you live your life according to what people on Twitter say, you'll never make the right choices in your life. You know what I mean?
So actually, this is a very interesting thing that I've always kind of experienced, especially when we're dealing with humans, is that you
Yeah,
have a large percentage of population of humans that are looking for someone to look up to. If it's
yeah,
Trump, if it's some influencer on a
yeah,
screen, whatever, they want someone to look up to because like they don't necessarily want to feel alone. They don't feel comfortable feeling alone. They don't know
yeah,
what's best for them. And so they look up to to someone else. And and so like if you do have a position where people do look up to you, you know, like dude, like that's crazy.
yeah,
Like it's
yeah. But
scary.
yeah, but I think it's bad. I think people need to make an
Yeah.
effort to not look up to people because this is what I like. For example, people who watch my channel is quite small, let's say, in
Yeah.
comparison to, but there are people who look up to me, I guess, like not look up to me, but like they look for me to hear my opinion, let's say. And obviously, I see people who look up to other influencers in the same niche, but it's kind of like I always tell people like no one does anything for free, meaning like I don't record videos for free. I don't sell anything on my channel. But at the same time, I am getting something out of it, and it has nothing to do with my audience. Like, you are the product to some extent. And the moment you realize that, you should understand, like, if I'm literally telling you that and I'm literally doing the same thing that other influencers are doing, you should probably believe me that they're doing it 10x. You know what I mean? It's like, why would you
Right.
believe a guy like people think people are gonna set up a camera, edit a video, write a script, try to get popular on social media, and just for their well-being. It's like what
No.
are you like 5? You're 5 years old.
No.
Santa Claus isn't real, you know?
No. No.
Yeah,
No, like even myself, because like I'm now starting to do videos like this. I'm now starting to create content. Like you don't think for a second that like there's some ego like honestly involved with
sure,
that.
sure.
Like cool, more people are
Of
showing
course.
like that. Like I get more validation that way. Like in that sense, like I'm getting something from you, the viewer.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
And
exactly. Exactly.
and if it's Trump or any influencer or whatever, they need to realize if you are successful in that, whatever position or platform that you have, that it can be scary because people will literally look up to you. And how do you
Yeah,
manage that? And so like I'm always telling people, when it comes to like freedom or sovereignty, like whatever these words mean, but it's like we'll
yeah.
say these words and like what I'll think in my head and what you think in your head will be entirely different. But like
Sure,
people are
yeah.
literally like hanging on to every word that like, especially what Trump will say these days, and like, oh,
Yeah.
that's freedom. Like America stands for freedom now. And it's
Yeah.
like if Trump, says something and does something that like in my mind is like, I don't think that like sounds like freedom at all. So we all have like these different perspectives,
Yeah.
depending on our environment and and all these kind of stuff. So I think like the point we're getting at, this is a very interesting
Yeah.
conversation. Think for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or also like control your inputs, meaning, for example, a lot of people in my niche, they're looking for places to move, they're looking to optimize tax, they're looking to start a business, and it's like if you're getting information from extremely biased sources, and every source is biased, I'm biased too, but if you're getting your information and your reality based on like extreme bias, you're never going to be able to like see a reality. And it's just like, and we go back to the Latin American guys that talk about the guys on Twitter who talk about Latin America. It's like obviously they're trying to like push their businesses and marketing, and that's great. Like I
Yeah,
fully support guys who are trying to make money. Like
absolutely.
that's
Oh yeah.
why, yeah, that's why you'll never see a video of me being like, oh, I'm exposing this guy or anything, because I'm like,
No,
I
let's
like
do
those
it.
guys more. Yeah, and I like those guys more than I like my audience to some extent. Because like those guys are trying to make money, and I'm like, go for it. Like I love you for it. I don't spend time in Latin America that much, but if I was there, I would be friends with them. I'm happy to share my any tips that I have. But yeah, but at the same time, just don't trust what they're saying because they are salespeople. You know what I mean? Like it's really that simple. Like
So, so I'll sometimes use the word manipulation, and
sure.
that normally has a very bad connotation to it.
Yeah,
But even in this conversation right now, we are manipulating each other to like think
of
in certain
course.
ways, say certain things,
Yeah,
whatever. And we manipulate people all of the time. So like we're
yeah, of
constantly
course.
selling ourselves or selling something or selling an idea or trying to sell whatever. And so like we constantly manipulate our environment around us for our
Yeah,
benefit.
yeah, 100%.
That's just the way humans
Like
are. And that's not
that's
bad.
that's that's how we progress. That's how we make buildings and build the car. And you know, like stop living in caves. Like some guy had to be like, let's get the fuck out of this cave. And he had to make it like it's just how human society works. Um, so yeah, yeah. Like look, I've been like ever since I finished college, I've only ever
Yeah.
done like sales and marketing. Uh, so that's why I have these opinions on my channel because it's just like my bread and butter.
Right.
Um, and I like talking about like sales and marketing quite a bit.
Yeah,
But
no, it's cool. Like it's fun.
yeah, on my channel, I wanted to take the opposite. Like instead of trying to sell the audience something, I guess I'm trying to sell them on the idea to be an adult, which is actually very difficult to sell because there's very little ROI there. But it's fun. I like it.
Wait, so are you saying like the Western school system doesn't teach people how to be an adult?
I think I
Loaded
think
question.
yeah, I think loaded question because it's like when especially in this niche that I'm in, a lot of people kind of hate the West and they see it as like I'm sure you've heard of Ray Dalio. He wrote
Yeah.
this book about like the collapsing of the West or something. And like anytime I say anything negative, for example, I'm from Canada, and if I ever speak negatively about Canada, people assume that me speaking negatively about Canada means that I'm speaking positively about like Paraguay or Argentina. And it's like it is possible to just talk shit about everything, you know? Because
So,
like
yeah.
no, because I've seen like people in my niche who will tell me like Canada or America, like the education system sucks. I'd rather my kid goes to school in Colombia or something insane like that. And it's become like the norm to say things like that. As long as you shit on the West, it's just totally okay to assume that a third world country has a better education system than a first world country, you know? Or like the other thing is like when people will compare statistics between like America, who does a relatively good job at not making up shit in stats, to a country that's like well known to make up stats. And let's say Latin America to keep it simple. And it's like, why are you believing, like, why are you comparing like real stats to like made up shit? Like anybody can make up stuff. I'm a billionaire. Does that mean it's true if I say it? It's retarded.
Billionaire like in pesos or in Doge?
Exactly.
Like
Exactly. Exactly. It's
it's all
just
about
like people like
context.
yeah, it's all about context and like do you actually trust the data that you're being given? So yeah, I'm very pro America to some extent. So,
Yeah. No, I mean like me being an American, I've always considered myself not American in some ways, but
Yeah,
extremely probably more American than a lot of people because
sure,
I grew up, like learning all like American propaganda about like the US Constitution and Thomas
sure.
Jefferson and the Bill of Rights. And I'm like, yeah, like this stuff is cool.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
hell yeah, I'm down. Like, does this country today like really stand for that?
yeah, yeah,
That can be a debate. Sure. We
sure.
can criticize, whatever.
Of
It's
course, you
definitely
should,
not.
and you should criticize, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I almost ran for office like back in
Really?
2016. Like I almost ran for Congress.
Shit. Damn.
Um,
Now,
and then I
now you're
realized
starting a
that like
podcast talking to me.
what?
Now you're starting a podcast talking to me. Could be doing a lot better.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like when you realize that it's just like if you try to run for politics and try to change things, it's like no, no way. And
100%.
like I'd have probably lost anyway, so it would have been just like a complete waste of my time. Or like my family could have been threatened, and it's just like not worth it.
Sure.
Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just not
for
worth
sure.
it. And
Yeah,
and I think one thing that I really do like about, let's say, people in like the investment migration space
yeah,
in general is like if you are literally an expat in Colombia or Argentina or Mexico, or even if you go to like Asia or Europe or whatever, and you're literally just an expat or a immigrant, uh,
yeah,
the politics really don't matter. So if
yeah,
you're in
of
your
course.
home country,
Yeah,
like, does that really change? Like, I'm just here just to make money and like provide for like a family or whatever. Like, the politics really don't matter.
yeah,
Like, if it's like if it gets bad, in a
yeah,
situation like like whatever, like there's kind of yeah, okay, like make sure you have a backup option. Okay, like yeah,
sure,
go get that on like second residency if you can. Like that's legit,
sure.
you know. If that makes sense. I don't think the US is going to go down that route. So like I'm not even really incentivized to go out there and get a bunch of passports and like residencies because
Yeah,
like I collected Pokemon cards when I was younger.
yeah, yeah. They're really nice. But,
Yeah, like it's cool, but like if I have like $3,000 for a residency, I'd rather just spend that on like investing into my business or like
oh,
buying
a
Dogecoin or
thousand
whatever.
percent. Yeah, yeah, 100%. 100%. And also like, when because a lot of my audience is American, and it's weird that I'm so fixated and going against my audience. I think I kind of like it, to be honest. And it's kind of like people will tell me like America sucks because this. And I'll say like, okay, where would you like to move? And they're like, I'd like to move to Y country. And I'm like, you realize like the issue that you're having in America is like 10x worse in that country. And it's like, oh, and I'm like, well, that's and sometimes like the people who work selling services in that country will say things like, no, it's not. I'm like, we just can't speak the language. Like that's basically it. Like I watched a video recently of a black lady living in Spain,
Yeah.
and she was complaining how racism in America is so crazy, and how like Spain is much better. And I'm just like I've lived in America. I do business in America. Like what are you talking about, lady? And then I go to her second video, and she's like, I'm trying to learn A1, A level 2 Spanish. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see. You don't speak any Spanish whatsoever. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you move to if you want to like America, just if you want to like any country, just don't speak the language and do not follow local politics, and it will seem great because like happiness is within to some extent, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And you've heard of the concept of like, oh, like the grass is greener on the other side. But like the
Of course,
grass is actually greener where you water it.
100%.
So
And you know
like,
what? Sometimes,
yeah.
and sometimes the grass is greener where you are. You just you're just like comparing one blade of grass to the whole fucking yard. But if you compare the yard to the yard, you might see that you're just looking at one blade of grass.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's very true. Because like when I was living in Portugal, I was like, there's a lot of cool things I like about here, but just nothing on a government level works. If I'm trying to get stuff delivered, it just doesn't work.
Yeah,
And then I come back to
yeah,
the US and I order something off Amazon, it literally might come in a few hours. Dude,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
like maybe like I need like I don't know, like I want to order like a new mic that I have, right?
yeah,
And I was like, like I got a podcast tomorrow, and I see on Amazon it's gonna be like delivered like tomorrow, somewhere between this time and this time, and I have a podcast like 2 hours later. I can do that. in the US.
Yeah.
And 90% of the time, like I will get my mic and I'll be ready to do that podcast and that's just how it is. I
Yeah.
can't do that in Portugal. And God knows I can't would not be able to do that like in LATAM.
Impossible. Impossible. There's something like I feel like China, Russia, and America are the only countries that I've been to where that's possible.
Really.
Like you can do stuff like that, but the rest of the world is just kind of like a mess, to be honest. And
Yeah.
I always tell people because like a lot of my audience is very concerned about the economic collapse of America, which is silly. Um, but I always tell them like, look, if you're in Argentina, for example, and like Burger King, which has standard procedures, standard menu, standard everything, cannot make a burger under 30 minutes. What makes you think they can run an economy that's going to compete against like America, China, Russia, for example? It's like if you can't run Burger King, where everything is like standard. So you can actually compare Burger King in Moscow to Buenos Aires to New York to
Yeah.
Beijing. They all have Burger King. And if one of them takes 10x the amount of time to process an order, you fundamentally know there's an issue there. Like, and it's not the process itself. There's some cultural, there's some people issues, there's some education issues, because everything is the same. It really is a scientific test. Like, just go to McDonald's in every country and see how they operate, or Burger King, whatever you prefer, and you'll see the real country.
I've never heard about that before, but yeah. I
Try
haven't had
it.
I honestly haven't had fast food in such a long time, so I might have to do
Yeah,
that with like a Starbucks or something like that. Because you know
sure,
how people would compare like, oh, the price of like McDonald's in this country, this country, and this country.
sure.
And it's like,
Yeah,
okay, yeah, if we're gonna go to LATAM, like, yeah, your McDonald's is gonna be cheaper. But like, how long is it gonna take?
forever, forever. And the
And
quality, and yeah, go ahead, sir.
yeah. Because like, but like on the flip side, you were about to bring up quality. I mean, like McDonald's in Europe is fundamentally better than in the US for sure.
Hmm, I agree on that. But I don't go to McDonald's for like a tasty burger. I go to McDonald's for like GDP, economy, efficiency burgers. You know what I mean? Give me the fastest burger at the lowest price now. It's like the ultimate test of an economy. It's like how fast can they make a McDonald's burger? That's it.
Yeah, I've never worked at like a fast food place but it just even in the US when like you see the kind of people who like can work in fast food like
Yeah,
but like I mean like they get your orders done pretty fast in the US, like never had a problem. Like you roll up in the
yeah,
drive-through, boom, it's right there, you pay
yeah,
and you're out, and then you're eating your French fries in
yeah.
like your
5, 10
whatever.
minutes. As McDonald's should function. Same thing if you go to McDonald's in Beijing.
Yeah.
It's like 5, 10 minutes. You get your food. I don't go to McDonald's often, but the point that I'm trying to make is that there's a lot of like I feel like there's a lot of work that needs to be done for our country to be successful in terms of like business. And a lot of people on Twitter and stuff, they talk about countries becoming successful, but it's like they're fundamentally missing a lot of things. And the idea is that overnight they will become successful, but it's like no, they're not. Like run the McDonald's first, and then I'll believe you.
So what you're
And
saying is that El Salvador is not going to become like a Singapore like tomorrow.
it might in like 30 years. Why not? But it took Singapore like decades to become Singapore. It took China decades to become China.
So it's so fascinating that you say 30 years because when people talk about like the downfall of the US, like whatever that means,
Yeah.
I'll always say in 30 years from now, you'll be able to see some sort of like major difference after 30 years
Sure.
because it's like a frog in boiling water scenario. You don't realize you're being boiled, right?
Yeah.
If it's going downhill, right? So it's like, okay, maybe the US dollar is going to lose its reserve currency in 30 years. Okay, well, we
Sure.
got to start prepping today. No, you don't. Dude, that's 30
Yeah.
years. Like you might be dead.
100%. And
Like,
and and you won't feel it either. And also like yeah, it's just like it's like the thing is, like, this topic is by influencers and like actually large companies that are trying to sell you financial services. And like, I'm not going to compete against a room of writers, like copywriters that are making ads, that are literally writing a book, that are spending like
Yeah.
millions of dollars to get on podcasts and spread a marketing message. Like, their conversion rate is incredibly high. Like, I'm just a guy with a camera, and all I'm doing is asking questions. Like, really? Like, that's going to happen next month or next year? Like, if you look at like 4 years ago during COVID, um, like how many people were talking about hyperinflation of the US dollar? And here we are 5 years later, and did it hyperinflate away,
Yeah.
or it didn't? And or like even before COVID, a lot of people were talking about buying real estate in Colombia. That was like a popular topic in this niche.
Right.
And did it work out? No. If you look 4 years ago, a lot of people were talking about Ecuador. There was even some influencers in this niche that were like Ecuador this, Ecuador that, and like, where are they now? You know what I mean? Like,
They had a
the
coup
world
like a year
changes.
ago.
Yeah, they had like some crazy shit happen.
Yeah, which is like sad. Like it's like yeah, it's like awful.
Yeah, because they're. I feel like Latin America is very like unstable region of the world, and it's not very stable. So like that place can actually change pretty fast because it's just like next day it can be quite different.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
like
I mean,
Argentina.
yeah. No, like I was about to bring up Argentina. Like I'm so curious on how it's going to look like, in a few years from now, because I know a lot of my friends who lived in Argentina, like they're complaining about like prices are high, unemployment is high, you know, but like for like the first time, like they don't have like a deficit, but for
Sure. Yeah.
average like Argentinian, like life is way worse under Malay. That's the like that's the reality of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like Millet quite a bit. I even have a video about Millet like that I made like a year or 2 years ago, like
Yeah.
before he was popular. Uh, and I was in Argentina where he used to be able to walk around the city and like no one knew who he was. Like, there were some like Gen Z people, like the younger crowd, who knew who he was.
Yeah.
That's how he started becoming popular. And like, I like the guy, but at the same time, like, I get a lot of people on my comments upset at me when I say things like it's not gonna like turn around overnight. And they're like, "Fuck you, Ron." I'm like, okay,
Yeah, I mean, and like with that being said, I mean, Malay and I have the same like set of beliefs and like politics. But
sure,
if you're gonna sober up an economy, dude, like the hangover is gonna suck. It's gonna
yeah, for sure,
suck. Like you might think you're about to die. Like like we've been in
yeah,
college before, right? Right? It's
100%,
like sometimes you go have that hangover and it's just like,
yeah,
damn, I need to
just what it
stop
is.
drinking. I need to stop dealing with, like free money or like, like free stuff. And like that sobering
Yeah,
up experience can be so tough and so painful that people just might,
go
like
back.
yeah, might just go back because it's like it's easier just
Yeah,
drinking. Like that's a complex, topic,
sure,
within
yeah,
itself of like economy. But I mean, I'm very curious on what like Malay will do in Argentina. I'm very curious what like
same.
Bukele will do, in El
Yeah,
Salvador. I'm super bullish on those countries, like 30 years from now.
sure. I mean, like, we'll see. In 30 years, he'll be an old man. I don't care.
Right, right, right. So just go
Like,
where like the grass is green right now. And
yeah, pretty
not saying those
much.
places are like bad places to visit.
They're not.
I love El Salvador, actually. I went there a lot. I actually started a company there like three
Oh,
years
shit.
ago because it was actually I started a immigration firm there because I had like some
Really?
connections with like yeah, it was like I had some connections with the government there. And we started the first firm that was going to sell like the CBI program, which stands
Oh,
for,
shit.
like citizenship by investment.
Yeah.
And then at the end of 2022, I completely pulled out because I was like, nothing's happening. And I'm glad I didn't pull out because like what then and like it was like 6 months ago or 12 months ago. I'm like, Bukele comes out and says, hey, this passport's worth like $1 million. It's like, no, it's not. And then and then since like I have connections like with the government down there, I like realized why it's $1 million because
Why?
so it's really funny because constitutionally
Hmm.
it has to be like someone has to make $1 million investment. It's like that's based on the Constitution. So they have to
Oh,
amend the Constitution, and for some reason they can't amend the Constitution. Imagine that.
damn.
That's why. That's why
That's
it's $1 million.
oh shit. I had no like. I just thought he just kind of like put up a price. I was like, cool.
No, because he's still
Oh
bound by the Constitution.
yeah. Damn. That sucks. That sucks.
Yeah,
Uh,
so it's not going to be 3 Bitcoin, if people were following that. It's
right.
like,
Right.
oh, it's going to be 3 Bitcoin,
Yeah.
which is still super overpriced.
Sure. Eventually, maybe. But yeah, it's like things don't happen overnight, and I always tell people to like just look at Singapore because like people love making that comparison. And by the way, like 2 years ago, people were talking about like Venezuela. Like a lot of influencers were literally saying like you should buy real estate in Venezuela,
Yeah,
um,
I
because it
remember
was going to
that.
be the next Singapore. And I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? Like what? Like it's not even close. Like I'll hear the argument that Malaysia will be the next Singapore. Sure, I mean it's right beside Singapore. Maybe why not? But like Venezuela is just like a not even a real country. Um, and yeah, it's just like things don't happen overnight. And again, just look at Singapore. How long it took for like a guy like Lee Kuan Yew to like grow the economy and like stabilize the laws and make everything proper. Like he didn't do it in a year or 4 years or even 8 years. And that's just like the reality of it. And I'm not a bad guy for pointing out that things take a while. Yeah.
So we need a supreme dictator to get things done then.
I don't know about that.
So
That's
no,
not.
actually it's really funny because Trump's been doing all these executive orders, just like insane
Yeah.
stuff, and I'm just like, half of this stuff is like not constitutional at all. But I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe we just have like a supreme dictator, like no one cares about the Constitution anymore. But I'm like,
Like
I'm
that.
like, if it gets done, because like this is always I don't know if like Ray Dalio will talk about this, but like some people like will talk about this as like they're like we want like a dictator or we want like a king, and like that's better than democracy, you
Mhm.
know? And like me coming from like a libertarian point of view, a lot
Yeah.
of us will just get into the mindset of just like we're frustrated that people like don't see our view. And so like
Yeah.
we need to go back to a king, but like a good king and
Yeah.
get back to like the monarchy. And like if the king is good, then he'll lead in a good way. And if the king is bad, we'll, just do it like French style and just get out like the guillotine. So like you want to have a system like that or democracy, right?
Yeah. I'll take democracy for the West.
Okay.
I know
I
which side I want.
I was actually gonna say I'll take the complete opposite. And that's fine.
Nah, yeah. I think it's like the whole like and I'm only talking from like a Western perspective, is like in the West, we're quite accustomed to a more democratic system. It's like fundamentally rooted in our family structures and stuff. Like, uh, for example, in my family, I could always talk back to my parents. I could always kind of decide what I wanted to study. Uh, like outside of politics, there's just a lot of like individual ideology in our friend structure, in our relationships, and like for example, if you go to like Korea, like South Korea, I mean, if you look at it deeply, it's not like it's a very rigid society,
Yeah,
and it's very top to bottom, and maybe they're a bit more okay with that sort of setup, and it kind of works for them. Same thing for like China, like Thailand, Vietnam. Like it just kind of works for them because there's like a lot of like structures in the culture that kind of work the same way. So it just kind of makes sense
right.
that if your families, your dad and your mom are the little kings of your family structure, it just kind of makes sense as how it would be built that way. But I think the West is more bottom up to some extent. It's not perfect, but I do think, like kids in the West can talk back to their parents, like 100%. Not all of them, but like a lot of them can be like,
I
no, mom,
totally did
fuck you.
that. I totally did
Exactly.
that. I mean, I
So you,
wasn't
you
bad,
wouldn't
but
be,
yeah, I did that.
yeah. There you go. So you don't want to live in a top bottom society. You never did. It would never work for you.
Honestly, I do see your point, and it's very valid because I'm always the type where I always just want to do things on my own.
Yeah,
I'm more of like a free thinker. I've always been extremely rebellious. Like in
yeah.
my early 20s, like I was playing like in punk bands, like
No, cool.
just like talking, like shit about the US basically. Like,
Yeah,
so like that's just the type of person I was. Like I was a skateboarder, like
cool,
like went to Green Day concerts, just like that was the person I was.
cool. I
So
remember those guys.
yeah, yeah. So like that's really funny that you bring up that point. But like with that being said, sometimes you get to a certain point where like you are frustrated with the
Sure.
politics of your country, and it's just like, well, you know what? Like if I was in power,
Yeah,
if I was in power, if I was the king, I would know what's right, you know?
it's a very
Because like
dangerous
you get
spot.
right, right, because like you get like this egotistical
Yeah,
thing where it's like my politics are right. Like everyone should be a libertarian, you know?
yeah,
But like tying it into a little bit what we were talking about before about like humans, I don't say in general, like there's like a large amount of humans that literally look up to other people.
yeah,
So like, is everyone really capable of being a libertarian?
yeah. Probably not. I guess. Yeah, probably not. But yeah, yeah. Like, and like I guess to finish off the video, since you said you want to keep it
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a bit short, and I'll finish with this. Like, because again, I talk to a lot of Americans. They're my main audience on my channel, and
Yeah.
obviously the topic of democracy, freedom is a rather popular topic. Even though I'm trying to change my channel to more like business stuff because it's what I do on a daily basis.
Cool.
And I always tell people like, for example, like recently there is a trend of Paraguay, and a lot of people are saying that Paraguay has more political freedom than America. And it's like, no, it doesn't. Like Paraguay has had a one-party state system who doesn't do anything for decades. And it's kind of like, for example, in Asia, there are one-party state systems, but a lot of them have done stuff. You know what I mean? Like the whole concept of like the one-party state system, not just in China, but in other countries, is that their government has legitimacy because they're doing stuff for the people. Like they're
Yeah.
building buildings, trains, the economy is growing, everyone's getting more wealth, and that's like their ideology. And I have nothing to say against it
That's
or pro.
true. That's true. Yeah.
And that's kind of like how they define democracy, where it's like the father structure is sort of like taking care of the family. Therefore, the father should have some say into how the family is run. And it works for them. There's a lot of, but for example, in a place like Paraguay, like they literally have a one-party state system that kills like people who
Right.
try to run against them, and nothing actually happens in the country. It's extremely underdeveloped, um, and it's a bunch of like money laundering. And it's kind of like I like Paraguay. I have friends from Paraguay, blah blah blah. But it's just like you can't expect me to take it seriously when you tell me you're moving outside of the U.S. because you hate the lack of freedom, and you're going to move to a place like Paraguay or Colombia. For example, in Colombia, they're historically in the past like 20 years, they've killed like tons of innocent people
Yeah.
over politics. And like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You just can't read Spanish. That's the difference.
So, Ron, it was an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Everyone check out
Likewise.
Ron's channel, Nearshore Living.
Ooh,
It's
nice.
it's a cool channel. It's very like if you're in like the investment migration niche, it's definitely a niche. But if you're not, for sure check it out. But it was great. Again, this was the Joey
Yeah.
Langenbrunner podcast. We talk about freedom and sovereignty here. And cool. Thanks, guys. See you in the next episode.